This is Ingredient Insiders. I'm John Magazzino.
And I'm Andrea Parkins.
On each episode of Ingredient Insiders, we'll be talking with chefs and writers about their favorite ingredients.
We then speak to the producer of that ingredient. We learn its history, how it's made, and why chefs love using it in their kitchens.
Andrea, today we have a true superstar on the show. A TV star, a chef, a celebrity chef of the highest caliber.
We have Chef Tyler Florence.
This is going to be such a great conversation.
He was one of the first stars on Food Network, and that's kind of, where he got his stardom.
Yeah.
And now, you're talking, 15, 20 years later, he's still, has, new shows on Food Network. He's opening new restaurants. I mean, his success kind of seems to just continue on and on and on for him.
I mean, I think the ingredient today is the recipe for success. How has he done this?
Right.
As you just mentioned, he's gone from television success to restaurant success. Neither one of those is easy, and he seems to have been able to pull off both and continues to open new restaurants. He's got this great new steakhouse in San Francisco. Huge, love and using high quality products. He's
Allen
using,
Brothers beef.
He's using great beef, Japanese beef. The place is doing fantastic. So,
and I think for young chefs who are, do I want to go to culinary school? I love food, but is this what I want to do with my career? I think listening to Tyler and learning his journey and his story, I think you could, really learn a lot from him. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I can't wait to speak with Tyler Florence. He really is a true success story.
The recipe for success, John.
This season of Ingredient Insiders is brought to you by Bazzini Nuts. Bazzini is the brand of choice among chefs in the finest hotels and restaurants. Their legacy of quality extends to gourmet retail stores, specialty boutiques, grocery distributors, and delis, ensuring you have access to their extensive range of consumer retail packages. It all started in 1886 when Italian immigrant Anthony L. Bazzini began selling nuts by the pound to bakers, street vendors, and individuals during the Great Depression. But Bazzini Nuts isn't just about peanuts. They offer a delightful array of nuts like cashews, almonds, pecans, pistachios, hazelnuts, and more, plus a tempting selection of dried fruit, including apricots, cranberries, figs, dates, prunes, and tomatoes. So whether at the ballpark, in the kitchen, or indulging in some well-deserved self-care, choose Bazzini Nuts. With a legacy spanning 137 years, they're here to serve your needs with the same consistency, reliability, and quality, making them an iconic name in the world of nuts and dried fruits. Bazzini Nuts, tradition, quality, and taste all in one. Taste the legacy today.
This episode is in partnership with the Chef's Warehouse and produced by Gotham Production Studios in New York City. So this is kind of an awesome morning. We have Tyler Florence on the line joining us from his home in Northern California. Andrew, where are you today?
I'm at home in Bucks County, Pennsylvania.
A little bit of a rough morning for Andrea. This was like Andrea is so excited about this episode. She for the last, literally, Tyler, don't blush, but for the last 2 weeks, she's been like, Tyler Florence is coming on. I am so excited. Did you know that I used to work for Tyler at the Food Network? I said, no, I didn't know that. And she told me the whole story. And then, of course, she woke up bright and early this morning and her technology would not cooperate. So, Andrea, how you feeling now?
Apologies if you can't hear me clearly, but John's right. I was so excited for this. I was an intern at Food Network in 2007, and I got the opportunity to make herb pots and clean off the counter on Tyler's Ultimate. So full circle moment for me.
First of all, John and Andrea, it's an absolute pleasure being with you today. And Andrea, it's always really exciting when young culinary enthusiasts and chefs and producers, executive producers, find their way inside the Food Network family. And some of the most interesting people who, and I'm saying this all over my heart, used to wipe off my cutting board, have gone on to do a very, very, very amazing things, right? So everybody starts someplace. I started out washing dishes in the nicest restaurant in my hometown of Greenville, South Carolina. And it's just, I think when you find yourself, in the right place at the right time, even though you're peeling potatoes, right? There's nothing better than just to soak it all up and just watch and just be part of the room and those magical moments, especially back in like the early aughts and 2000s, because there was really,
I
really good
remember
programming.
I had to cut a quart of Brinois peppers for Emerald when he was doing Emerald Live every day. Like that was my job for like 2 hours, just Brinoising. And I remember being like, I cut those peppers. So, yep.
You were chopping up Bam.
So, definitely watch.
Who can say that? That's got to be on your resume. Bam chopper.
So I want to find out, you grew up in South Carolina. How did you end up in New York? How did you end up even going, you know, where did your TV career start? I'm curious to know all of this because we obviously know where you are today.
I'm 52 years old. I own 5 restaurants in San Francisco, about to be 6. You know, I just finished my 17th cookbook. It's my 27th year on television with Food Network. We're in the beef business. We're in the wine business. I got 3 beautiful kids. Like we're like, life is full. Life is good. It all starts someplace, right? So I grew up in South Carolina. I grew up in a small town called Greenville. It's in the northwestern part of the state. And it's not really so small anymore. It's there's a third city in between Atlanta and Charlotte, and it's called Greenville, and it's big. It's about 1.5 million people. As a matter of fact, more people live in Greenville than live in San Francisco. And it's the headquarters of Michelin North America. It's all the tires and everything. And then it's also the home of BMW North America. So there's lots of big industry that happens there. And also Greenville is the tech capital of the state. And the restaurants are amazing. There's lots of really, really good, very innovative restaurants. Where it used to lean heavily towards Charleston, now it's Greenville because Johnson Wales University is in Charlotte. So it's actually easier to get to Greenville than it is Atlanta. So a lot of those like top tier talent that are coming out of culinary school in Charlotte are migrating down to Greenville because of the restaurant scene there is just so robust, which is very, very exciting. And so I started washing dishes in the nicest restaurant in my hometown, and I just needed, because I needed a job in high school. I wanted to get a car, you know, and because like at some point in time you figure out girls like boys who have cars, not ride skateboards, and so you got to start making that move, right? And my parents were backbone people, you know, my dad especially, real backbone guy. It's like, oh, you want to get a car? Okay, let me tell you how to get a car. You go get a job and you save your money and you buy a car, and that's how you get a car. And so I started washing dishes, and I bought a 1966 Comet Capri, gigantic beast of a car from my grandfather for $500 that I earned myself. And that was the reason behind me getting into the restaurant business in the first place. And I used to wash dishes there and just kind of fell in love with the theater of restaurants. You know, it's like, it's showtime. Let's go. And, you know, the first one, when you have those moments as a young, you know, like I feel like the industry chose me. When you have that moment where you taste lobster and hollandaise for the first time, it's hard to go back. You know, when you start tasting these, like, you know, Alaskan king crab legs and lemon, what is that? You know, like first time you ever taste like a filet mignon wrapped in bacon, like what is that? Oh my God, what? And I just decided that cooking was something I really loved to do, and so I worked there, worked in Greenville for a handful of years, and then Charleston started calling my name. I went to culinary school at Johnson Wales University when it was in Charleston. JW. You went to Johnson Wales?
Yeah, I went to the one in Providence.
Johnny Whalers, baby. I love that. Jay Woo, that's right. So I went to culinary school there. I went there for 4 years. I got a culinary degree, and then I got a business degree in hotel restaurant management. And then after that, you know, it was sort of a toss of the coin if I was going to go to Paris or if I was going to go to New York. And you know, when you go to culinary school, and maybe there's a lot of like chefs who can remember back in the day, but there's about 5 people who you know just going to be awesome. We're just gonna go places and do some amazing things. So like kids that really took themselves seriously, and I was definitely in that group. And then so I moved to New York City, and I got a job with Charlie Palmer at Oriel. I moved to New York City with $2,000 in my pocket. That's all the money I had in the world. I had $2,000. I had maybe a little more than that, but it was first month's rent, last month's rent, about $500 in cash. And I didn't have a job. I had a stage. I didn't have a job. So I had to get to New York, get an apartment, and knowing good and well, I didn't have my second month's rent. I didn't have it.
Yeah.
I didn't have it, but I knew that I had to be in New York City. I knew that this was the right step for me to, right thing for me to do. and I was just going to figure it out. So, and I've often, I've lived most of my life with that sort of drive and connection with the universe, that everything is just like going to be great. And it kind of always has been. Not that, an enormous amount of work doesn't need to go into that process to make that happen. But things have always just sort of worked out for the better, which has been really, really interesting. So anyway, so I worked with Charlie for a long time, and then worked with a bunch of other restaurants. And then in 1996, kind of flash forward a couple of years, so I graduated from culinary school in 94. I moved to New York City. And then within 2 years, I had found myself as the executive chef of this Italian restaurant called Cibo, Cibo. And it just recently closed, by the way, which is just unheard of. The restaurant was around for 20-something years. Yep. It was just wild. It was on 42nd and 2nd, right on the cusp of the Tudor City. And I was the opening executive chef there. And we were getting some really good buzz and press in New York. And it was sort of inventive, fun, but really I as authentic as I could possibly get. I was, I made the pilgrimage to meet Letty Bastianich, and we're sleeping with the cookbooks on my pillow, and, making all the pasta from scratch, and just like really just like embracing authentic Italian food as much as as a 25-year-old kid who'd only been there once, I could ever possibly know anything about it. And we were getting some good press. And then I remember one night, this woman named Lori Green, who is an executive with Food Network, walks in, and, like most chefs do, you flip your coat from the dirty side to the clean side. It's double-breasted for a reason. And you fill your pocket full of business cards, and you walk outside and you start working the floor. And it's like, "Hi, I'm Tyler. How was dinner tonight? You enjoyed yourself? How was everything? Nice to meet you." And she goes, "Dinner was delicious. Here's my card. And if you ever want to join us on this new network called Food Network, we'd love to have you on." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Because it was really starting to blow up in New York and LA and Chicago at the time. And then I had one guest appearance on the show called In Food Today with David Rosengarten and Donna Hanover. And none of you guys know what I'm talking about.
I know. I'm old.
But it's okay. But it was one of they had this news show called In Food Today. It was actually a live news feed where they would, talk about like what's happening in the world of food as if it were a news broadcast. And then at the end of it, they had this little small section of the show for guest chefs. And I represented Cibo, and I went there and I made 2 dishes and, mumbled my way through 3.5 minutes. And the executive producer, Bob Tushman, walked down and said, "That was fantastic. Would you like to come back next week?" And I thought I did a terrible job, but he loved it. And that was sort of the first day of the rest of my life. And I went back to the restaurant. I sat there at my desk, and I'm like, okay, that was one of the most important things I've ever done in my life. And, I always said yes. I always prepped my own food. I was always on time. I knew my lines. I knew where to go. And I just loved it. I absolutely loved the whole idea of being on television before it's even a thing, because back then, Food Network wasn't obviously, so Food Network started in 1993 or started in 93. I joined in 96. It was like 3 years old. Right. So it was Bobby, Emerald, Mario, Ming, Sarah Moulton, myself, a gentleman named Curtis, I can't remember his last name, but he had this like produce show, and there was like 6 of us on the network. And it was just the wildest thing ever. It was the wildest thing ever, because when I wrote my first book when I was 25 years old, and I just finished my 17th cookbook, when I wrote my first one, we were planning this book tour. My God, we booked 2 nights at the Barnes and Noble on Michigan Avenue in Chicago. And 600 people a night came out.
Oh, awesome.
Wow.
It was the wildest thing ever. We had to book 2 nights to get through a book tour.
I mean, you were a big deal, and you still are. But I mean, I remember plenty of my young female friends swooning over watching you on the Food Network. I mean, Andrea, talk to me about this. Tyler, you were the heartthrob of the Food Network.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, like, I always like to think, my try to let my cooking
not
do
to
the
mention
talking.
the cooking.
Yeah, I try to let my food do the talking. But it was just this really kind of wild experience, right? Yeah. Of going from a relative obscurity in New York City. It's like if you're part of the chef community in New York, you knew who I was, and other than that, like, I don't know if I played in Michigan or whatever. Right? And then all of a sudden it's like the Food Network thing hit, and we were just everywhere. Wildest thing ever, just to be part of that magical wave of influence on food culture. And I took it very seriously, like I always still do. Listen, it's my 27th year on the network, and we're at pre-production for season 17 of The Great Food Truck Race, which we're shooting in January. And I've seen a lot of colleagues come and go. And the only person that's been on the network longer than me right now is Bobby. And I'm just thrilled to death and as grateful as always to be, in the Food Network family. It's an incredible group of people. And life is really, really good. So that's sort of like the base note. I mean, then there's so much information between that and where we are now, but that's how I get started.
What I love about the story is that you had this career where you were so focused in the kitchens, in the restaurants, doing what you love to do, got that break to go to the Food Network at a great time in its infancy. And then now you're back in restaurants where I feel like a lot of people might have said, you know what, let me just kind of live off of the idea that I'm a TV star. But you've really gotten never left, but you've got new restaurants in San Francisco. What brought you to California? Because you're an East Coast guy, guy from the South. You were in New York City, and now you have all of these beautiful spots in San Francisco.
My lovely wife, it was my third attempt to move to California when I finally got here. I had one job offering for a restaurant in downtown LA, way before downtown LA was cool. It was in the Oviatt building. It was a restaurant tour that came to New York City and said, "Oh, we'd love to have you in LA." And, I did a tasting. And then we had another opportunity to do a restaurant in Palm Springs, which I, as a young chef, packed up all my stuff and did a tasting there. And those two opportunities didn't work out, but I just love California. I'm shooting television, and I had friends in LA that I went to culinary school who had moved out to Los Angeles after they graduated. And LA is just magical, man. It's like the weather's fantastic and the people are really cool, and there's something really inspiring about it. And the first time I went to California, I was San Francisco. I was 19. And I had traveled with a girlfriend's parents. It was sort of a big family trip. And I just got out there and the weather was just amazing, like the kind of warm sun on your face, but then like that cool, breath of like ocean air, that it's sort of this beautiful combination that's felt like I felt equilibrium. I felt like I was in the right place. San Francisco is my town.
When you were Johnson & Wales, or, when you were first cooking in New York, before the producer came up or approached you, had you ever thought about it before? Or was that like the light bulb moment where you're like, whoa, like this is something that like I had never thought of, like doing anything in media?
In this weird way, I kind of grew up in television. So my mom was the business manager for the local NBC station, WYFF in Greenville, South Carolina, right? So my mom worked in the television station, right? And then she was divorced. And so on busy days, because often she would have to like close the books for the period, right? For the quarter. And so she would work weekends, and then she would take my older brother and I into the television station, and we would just run around like wild raccoons in the studio. And then I remember as a small kid sitting in the director's studio and watching him cut the news live. Give me camera 2, camera 1, go back to camera 2, and 3, 2, 1, and action. And like I just remember sitting in there and watching all this stuff going, okay, this is kind of wild. So when I ended up in a television studio as an adult with that opportunity, I kind of knew everybody's job. I knew what everybody did. I felt very comfortable in that room. Right? I felt very comfortable in the lights. I felt very comfortable in front of the stage, in front of the camera. I feel like I knew what 3.5 minutes was all about. Beginning, middle, and end, big close, nice presentation at the end, good description on the ingredients, tell a story, be funny, be personable. And you definitely learn that, you hone that the more that you do it. But I felt very comfortable in that position from the very beginning.
So great. I have one question, which is going to lead Andrea to another question, but you mentioned you've got 3 children. Do you have any time to cook at home, and do you still like cooking for the family?
Oh my God. Last night, as a matter of fact, I was driving home after a 14-hour day. Yeah, it was a long day yesterday. I drove up to Sonoma to do a site visit for this barbecue festival we're doing in March. And then I stopped by the cafes to do some quality control checks. And then I went by the restaurant. We had a game night last night, super busy. And it was like 10:45 last night. I'm driving home. And my 16-year-old son calls me. And he's like, "Hey, Dad, you coming home?" That's what he sounds like. "Hey, Dad." And I'm like, "Hey, man, how are you?" He goes, "Oh, my friend's over here, and I just want to know you were." And I could tell he wants me to cook him dinner. I didn't know where he's going with that. I'm like, because and he's a really good cook himself to be 16, right? I mean, he's like, he makes really good eggs, really good grilled cheese sandwich, that kind of thing. And I'm like, "I'll be home in like 10 minutes. I just crossed the bridge, and what do you want?" Because make some pasta. I'm like, in a heartbeat. So rolling last night, he's got like 4 of his knucklehead friends that were around the table, teenagers, right? And I just made them penne with pesto and Parmesan and grilled chicken, and I kind of put it on top of them, and I made him set the table, like get out set your table for the friends, right?
Yeah.
And they all had this big, huge spread at I think 11:30.
I love it.
I wish I was friends with your son in that moment to be able to eat. But John, you know what? I knew that Tyler had kids because on the set of Tyler's Ultimate, in the back, behind the stove, there was a picture of his son's dental x-ray. Am I right?
Yeah.
Why?
So,
Well, it was just because when you have kids, everything's cute, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean, right? Like most parents don't understand that not everything is cute, but most of the stuff they have is cute, right? And then so I'm assuming you can pull it up. I'll show you what I'm talking about.
and I always thought that was like super unique. Like,
I thought she was going to tell me there was like a beautiful family portrait, but there's a dental x-ray. I'm intrigued.
I'm kind of weird like that. You know what I mean? That's all right. I don't mind.
I love my daughters. I don't think I got a picture of their, nothing from the dentist office.
Let's see if I can find. I was like on the set of the. I don't know if I can find pictures of it. But anyway, so that was my apartment in Lower East Side, the very fashionable Lower East Side. I had an apartment on Christie and Rivington in New York, and I designed the whole kitchen myself. The tile was from Ann Sachs, and it was called celery green. And then I had this. I got cabinetry from IKEA, but I had it professionally installed, which is great. Like if you do it yourself, you're gonna mess it up. But if you have IKEA cabinetry professionally installed, it's great.
Yeah,
it holds up really, really well. I had a custom stainless steel top on top of that, and then just kind of built out the rest of the kitchen with a huge pot rack and my collection of copper and all kinds of fun stuff. And I had this vintage butcher block on the front, which is like my kitchen island, and it was just sick. And so we shot the pilot for Tyler's Ultimate, and we shot that show for 8 years. And then the pilot went off really, really well, and the producers loved the set. And they're like, "Can we just rebuild this set in a studio where we can control the lighting?" And because obviously, when you shoot out in the real world, you kind of wrestle with the sun all day long. So the designers came in and took, just measurements and pictures and everything, and rebuilt my kitchen brick for brick in a studio.
So cool.
And like a 3-wall thing. And then we shot on that set for 8 years. It was great. And it was just like, really, really great, simple cooking, kind of felt contemporary, but doable. And it was fun program to shoot.
Yeah. They
love that one.
Don, they do 3 takes. It was like the longest out of like all the shows I worked on. It was the longest days because they did 3 takes. They shot it first from really far away, and then we would set everything medium, and then they would do it, reset everything again, and they would shoot it really close up. And it made it like so beautiful when you watch the show, but it was like you're shooting 3 shows a day of the same exact thing.
And it was probably one of the reasons that we stopped shooting the show, just because it was a very, very frustrating show to shoot, right? So you did the show for 8 years, right? And I can't remember the name of the executive producer, but he was just obsessed with detail and minutia, and I love that. But it was just like all the stuff you'd end up like, sometimes you go back and watch the show, and I'm like, what happened to that moment when I dropped that banger of a joke right when we're slipping the steak over? I'm like, we had to cut it out because, I had to get the perfect steam coming off of the pot backlit and all this kind of stuff. And it was just sometimes it's like you can overshoot something,
sure.
and then really, and so sometimes those days got just excessively long. Like the 16 hours to shoot one episode of 16 hours to shoot a show. And it's just like, and like all of a sudden you can't look at everybody, especially even managing your own energy after a while. It's like, that's just a long, long, long day. And so, people think shooting television is a breeze, but it is work like everything else, and sometimes harder.
Yeah, it's where I became addicted to Diet Coke because like
a lot of coffee.
A
lot of coffee. I would take these little like power naps. I try not to eat because it just sort of affects my blood sugar, right? Because I'd rather be a little hungry and sharp than have like a belly full of sandwich and feel a little lethargic, and so yeah, I would try to eat all day long and just be so hungry at the end of the night. Like I just want to eat an animal in my face. So hungry. But the shows are great. I mean, honestly, it's like, everybody has their own particular style, and we got nominated for an Emmy, and the show was fabulous and people loved it. So I'm not complaining by any means whatsoever. It's just like, oh, boo-hoo. Your television show takes a long time to shoot. Boo-hoo. Oh, no. Poor baby.
Well, the last question that John kind of teased goes back to, you cooking at home. And we ask every guest, what are the 5 staples, or what are the 5 things if I were to open up your fridge or your pantry that you cannot live without?
Olive oil, salt. I mean, it's the basics, right? My pepper mill. I have this thing called the pepper cannon. Do you guys know about the pepper cannon?
I've heard about it.
Oh, it's the best pepper mill in the world.
Is it
Look it up.
Grind, or like, what is it?
No, it's like it's about this big, and the grinding, like, because everybody has the same old classic. Powered? Nope. It's got a full crank on it, but it's like designed by NASA engineers or something. But everybody has those like wooden Peugeot pepper mills with like the grind, and this thing puts it to shame. It's just like, I love do yourself a favor right now if you're listening to this. Pause the podcast, go look up the pepper cannon. They cost $200 a piece. It's expensive, but there is few things as satisfying when you're cooking than grinding on a pepper cannon. You're welcome.
Perfect for the holidays.
Go get one. Pepper cannon. You heard it here first. I think my pepper cannon is really great. I love chilies. I have a very extensive garden that we just kind of burn through. I've got the last little bit of chilies I got to pull off before it gets too wet and damp outside, or the chilies start molding. But I make chili oil every year. I make fabulous chili oil. I make chili sauce. I make chili sauce too, like a 14-day lacto fermented chili sauce. I make from scratch. I call it Sicilian slap.
Love it.
Nice.
Slaps you across the face. So hot, delicious. Yes, please. And gosh, I mean, you got to get the minutia with everything on my grills. I love my grills. So just outside my backyard, I have what I like to call my grill park. I have 8 grills out of my backyard, like just off the flank. Yep, grills. Oh yeah, oh my God, yeah. Because so my 17th cookbook called American Grill, like that's how I really like to cook. Like if I can get a grill going, I'd really cook outside. I just really enjoy cooking outdoors, and so live fire cooking is I think an expression that I haven't really had a chance to share with a lot of people yet. And so that's going to be the theme of my next cookbook. We have a big, huge tour coming up with Williams-Sonoma next summer, which is going to be awesome.
And what's the name of that book?
And so it's called American Grill. So it's American Grill. So yeah, it's available right now for pre-order on Amazon for all you lovely people out there. It's 125 recipes on mastering live fire. If you love to grill, for the grill king and queen in your life, it's going to be the new grilling Bible, which I'm very excited about. The book is beautiful. It's published by Abrams. They did such a fabulous job with it. I don't know where we are in my 5. Am I over that already, or I'm just like, here's this. It's not even ingredients, right? It's really more equipment, right? Because ingredients are like the ingredient. Like I always think like cooking is like a widget, right? Like It's whatever. You know what I mean? So it's like give me 5 ingredients and I'll turn it into a dish right now in front of you. But when it comes like equipment, right? Like it's like the equipment's everything, right? So like my great pepper mill, my salt well, my 24-inch cutting board, my knives that I try to keep sharp as much as possible at home. As a matter of fact, I think I owe my wife a knife sharpening day because a couple of them are a little dull. My Heston cookware, that I'm passionate about. Love Heston.
Are you a
such great
Japanese
stuff.
knife guy?
I got a bunch of Japanese steel. I sure do. But I gotta tell you, sometimes like the French sabatier, I just like those are just, I've got a bunch of like vintage sabatier stuff that I collect vintage knives, right? Chef knives. Those are really great. Also, Benchmade that they make just pocket knives. Benchmade.
I'm not
It
familiar.
has like the butterfly on the handle. Anyway, it's like this is this a Benchmade knife?
Wow. Okay.
This is not Benchmade, but anyway, they make pocket knives, but they just got into the cutlery game, which is kind of fun. They make really Benchmade makes beautiful cutlery. And I've got a bunch of knives. I probably have more knives than anybody should have, honestly, from all over the world. But I do have a lot of Japanese. I do have a lot of German. And my sabatiers are something really kind of classic about them that I love a lot, especially like an older sabatier. If you've got a really good vintage sabatier that's not sort of hammered in the middle because it's been sharpened too many times, I like to keep those sharp. Those are really, really nice. Like a nice combination between high carbon and stainless, because the high carbon's easy to sharpen, but it dulls pretty quickly, and stainless is hard to sharpen, but it dulls slower. So if you get a nice combination between the two, that's always a really good knife.
Yep.
Good handle, full tang.
In the 60 plus episodes that we've recorded, you're only the second chef that has said equipment when I ask that question.
Because everything else is just sort of like what I can make a feast out of a pig's ear, right? Like, so literally you give me, we could do this right now if you want. You want to give me 5 ingredients? I'll turn it to a dish right in front of you. Go ahead. I'm really good at it. Go ahead. Give me 5. You make it up, and I'll give you a dish right in front of your eyes.
All right.
All right. Ready, Andrew? Go
I
back and forth.
I have no idea what you're about to give me. I'm going to write it down on a piece of paper, and then I'm literally going to turn it into a dish right in front of you. Go.
John, give him one ingredient.
Lemons.
Okay.
Maple syrup.
Go ahead. Okay. Nothing stupid. No gummy bears.
Soy
okay.
sauce.
This isn't chocolate.
Okay. Good.
Yeah,
right.
Give him a protein, Andrea.
Protein. Duck breast.
Oh, this is easy.
Yeah, we're giving him. This is way too easy.
Yeah, right.
And I'm gonna say pears.
Ooh.
Oh, come on.
I know the recipe already.
Can we go frise and walnuts? I mean, can I add to that?
Back to the 80s.
Yeah. So I would take the duck breast, right? With the fat. You want to get like a really, really super sharp knife. Scoring a duck breast is super important because you want to break open the fat. You can't cut into the duck breast, but you want to slice through the fat. You want to make micro incisions. You can't. It's not. You're not cutting inch wide gaps on it. You have to feather the slicing of the duck breast, so it fuses back together, but it renders while it cooks, right? So it's got to be real micro slices, right, and a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
You want to salt it. So the salt penetrates the duck breast. So you want to make sure it's like tempered before you cook it, because you want to render it nice and slowly, so it can't be cold. And then you want to put a little bit of weight on top of that. You want to cook it really, really low. You want to render the fat out like bacon, but you want to leave the breast side medium rare, which is delicious. And then let's make a really beautiful maple soy lemon glaze. That's salty sweet. That works like peanut butter brittle, it's always delicious, never not delicious. And I've never done it before, but I could take soy sauce and maple syrup and mix them together, and I bet you it's bang. And then you're gonna heighten that flavor with lemon, right? With lemon juice, because you need some acid in there to kind of cut through the sugar and the salt, so it's nice and balanced. And then so you're gonna sear the duck, render the fat out where it's nice and crispy. You're gonna save the duck fat. You're going to whisk that. So now we have a broken vinaigrette. We have a soy maple duck vinaigrette. Delicious, right? And then I'm going to take the pear. I'm going to do 2 different things with it. We're going to roast it and then puree some of that roasted pear. So we have like a nice sort of like, we're going to put that into a squeeze bottle. So you have gushes on the plate.
Yep.
And then we're going to shave fresh pear on top of that right at the last second. And then we're going to finish that with a little more of our duck soy vinaigrette. And I'm going to throw some frise and candied walnuts on top of that too. And I just made you dinner. I can do this all day long,
You're
folks.
so lucky we're in New York, because otherwise we'd be coming over your house.
all day long. I can do this all day long.
I'm starved.
Andrew would be up your driveway right now.
I could do this with my chefs. I do this with my chefs all the time because when we write recipes and stuff like that, like I could do this all day long. Just this is where the proof meets the pudding, right? Like I've been doing this for 52. I've been doing this for 35 years now. Like I've been everywhere. I've eaten everything. I've cooked everything. I've done it. And then I just have like a wealth of knowledge in my head that I could turn this 5 ingredients into something just like
Love it.
John,
I can do this all day long.
John, when you go to Miller and Lux and you dish on the menu.
Yes.
I am going to San Francisco in 2 weeks. My nephew's graduating from Cal Berkeley.
Wow.
I'm gonna go. I'm taking my dad. We're gonna go to Wayfair though.
Well, go to Wayfair for lunch, but come to Miller and Lux for dinner. If I can get you for both.
All right.
Yeah, because the fried chicken at Wayfair is banging. It's really, really great. But come in for a steak.
Okay, we're gonna do both.
And John, John, send me an email when you get time. Do you have my contact information?
We do.
Okay, great. Yeah, so send me a contact, and I'll give you my phone number.
Yep.
Come in. Love to have you.
We would love that. Gonna
This
do
was
it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for all your time and
My
it's
pleasure.
been a great discussion. It was really lovely to hear your whole life story, honestly.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate yours. Well, listen, keep fighting a good fight and spreading the good word and love of good passion cooking and food everywhere like you guys do. And it was a pleasure being with you.
Absolutely.
This was Tyler Florence.
Yeah,
check out check out the new book and check out the podcast. He's got a wonderful podcast that talks all about food, drink, recipes.
Yeah, called Two Dudes in a Kitchen, published by iHeartRadio. They're fabulous partners, and it's myself and Wells Adams from The Bachelor. And he's a fun guy, and he kind of plays the, question asker, kind of position on the podcast, but make no mistake, he's a great cook himself and a great bartender. He's a really, really great mixologist. And so we have a good time. We just had our 1-year anniversary.
Awesome.
Amazing.
So we've done 52 episodes of that. Yeah.
Oh,
thanks again. Thanks for listening to this episode of Ingredient Insiders. Follow us on Instagram @Ingredient Insiders. You can find the products we've discussed on today's episode at chefswarehouse.com or at your favorite specialty retailer.